Good afternoon, fellow debaters and honorable adjudicator. I stand here as the Prime Minister to state our first two stances of this debate on the motion this House would ban the sale of fast fashion. So, before I get to my two important stances, I would like to, for the clarity of the debate, I would like to state a modern day issue concerning this proposition. So, in the status quo, climate change has in recent times turned increasingly acrimonious, raising the levels of awareness and the urgent implementation of mitigation levels for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions towards global warming. One key sector is the fashion industry, incredibly the niche of fast fashion, which also leads to a high carbon footprint. Now, to define the core issue of this debate, I'll state two theme questions to define the debate. So, first, how does the fast fashion industry take part in harming environmental degradation? Two, in what ways does fast fashion exploit labor, and how could banning its sale improve working conditions and social equity? And also, I'd like to outline our speeches with our first stance being environmental protection, our second stance being improved labor conditions, and our third stance being toxic culture of instant gratification. Now I'll move on to our first stance of environmental protection. So first, fast fashion enormously contributes to the degradation of the environment through resource consumption, pollution, as there will be fewer amounts of toxic dyes and chemicals released into water bodies. In addition, in fast fashion production, this would also be a significant upside about reduced landfill waste, as there will be much less clothing disposed of, making for a much more sustainable future. And second, better labor conditions. Fast fashion is highly associated with exploitative labor practices that include poor working conditions, low wages, and even an infringement on workers' rights. Prohibiting the sales of fast fashion would make the fashion industry implement fair labor practices and improve working conditions. This would ensure better wages, safe working conditions, and more significant social equity for workers in the global apparel industry. It is essential to promote ethical labor standards as parts of human rights. So, I'd like to state a burden to the opposition, and if they cannot answer this question by the end of the debate, we will take the motion home. So, for the opposition to triumph in this debate, they must overcome the challenges of climate change and environmental issues of fast fashion. With these points, I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Good morning, panel. I'm Rehemat Chawla, and I completely disagree with the motion today, which is this House would ban fast fashion. Fast fashion describes low priced but stylish clothing that moves quickly from design to retail stores to meet trends, with new collections being introduced continuously. Firstly, banning fast fashion would lead to an underground market. Criminal organizations would flourish in the absence of legal and affordable clothing options. This would only perpetuate corruption and undermine efforts to combat poverty. Secondly, the idea that people will start making their own clothes or buying secondhand is romanticized. Many people lack the skills or resources to create their own clothes, and secondhand shopping is often inaccessible due to the lack of infrastructure or cultural norms. Thirdly, the solution to sustainable fashion lies not in banning an entire industry, but in promoting sustainable practices within it. Fashion brands are already taking steps towards sustainability, like using eco friendly materials, reducing waste, and implementing recycling programs. Lastly, banning fast fashion would disproportionately affect marginalized communities who already face barriers to access affordable clothing. It is unfair to impose a solution that would further marginalize these communities. In conclusion, banning fast fashion is not a solution to our problems. It's a band aid solution that ignores the complexities of poverty, inequality, and cultural norms. Instead, we should focus on promoting sustainable practices with the fashion industry and providing education and resources for those who need them the most. And with that, I rest my case whenever my stance. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, and honorable judges, and fellow debaters, today we gather to discuss a critical issue that affects us all, the sale of fast fashion. Fast fashion, characterized by cheap prices and trendy designs, has become a staple in our wardrobes, but behind the glamour, and the convenience lies a dark reality. Fast fashion perpetuates a culture of disposability, where clothes are worn once or twice before being discarded, and people are valued for their appearance rather than their character. Some may argue that banning fast fashion will make clothing less accessible and affordable for low-income individuals, and families will rely on this affordable fashion options. However, I counter that this argument assumes that fast fashion is the only affordable option available. In reality, there are already many affordable, sustainable fashion alternatives available, such as second-hand shopping, or renting clothing. And promoting, and investing in these alternatives can ensure that everyone has access to affordable and sustainable fashion options, regardless of their income level. Additionally, the long-term benefits of the sustainable fashion, and such as reducing waste and pollution, far outweighs the short-term cost of slightly higher prices. This revised rebuttal addresses that concerns that banning fast fashion will make clothing less accessible and affordable, and offers alternative solutions that prioritize sustainability and accessibility. Now I'd like to go to my arguments. Fast fashion perpetuates a toxic culture of instant gratification, where people are encouraged to buy or discard without a second thought. This cultural disposability has led to a society where people are more focused on appearance and substance. By banning fast fashion, we can promote a culture of values where people encourage. Not now, sir. We can create a society where people are valued for who they are, not just for what they wear. We can create a society where people are encouraged to be authentic rather than trying to fit into a certain mold. In conclusion, the sale of fast fashion is symptoms by a large problem, a culture of disposability and superficiality. By banning fast fashion, we can promote a culture of values, individuality, and mindfulness, and create a society where people are valued for who they are, not just what they wear. Create a society where people are encouraged to be authentic rather than trying to build a certain mold. Let's make a twin that we remember for generations to come. Let's ban the sale of fast fashion and create a better world for all. Therefore, I'm so proud of your post. Thank you.
While it's tempting to think of a ban as a silver bullet, real progress comes from thoughtful regulation and a sustainable evolution, not prohibition. Greetings, House at Large. Today, the motion stands. This House would ban the sale of fast fashion. My name is Vihaan Kumar from Side Opposition. Today, my speech will involve rebuttals, elaboration on the first speaker's arguments, and my arguments. Now, side proposition said that fast fashion are usually made through sweatshops with poor labor conditions. Yes, I totally agree with you. But in fact, I asked, this could be in all industries. Don't you agree? So is the solution to kill industry, or the real action is for the government? They can take significant steps to make labor conditions better. Banning fast fashions can be determined to the livelihood of people. Fast fashion is a significant economic driver, providing employment to millions globally in many developing countries. The textile and apparel industries are crucial for economic development and poverty alleviation. Banning could lead to a massive job loss, destabilizing economies that depend heavily on this sector. Side proposition stated that fashion is determined to the... Huh?
On that point?
Sorry?
POI, sir.
Let me finish this. Can I please finish this? Yes.
Okay.
Implementing stricter regulations could address many of the ethical and environmental issues associated with fast fashion. Yes, may I can take your POI.
However, our Deputy Prime Minister has clearly stated about accessibility and affordability by saying that there are a lot of other companies who are providing low cost fashion, but it just doesn't need to be fast fashion since it brings repercussions such as environmental issues.
Oh, I'm actually coming to that right now. This could include enforcing sustainable products practices, improving labor conditions, and encouraging recycling and more responsible consumption habits without completely shutting down the industry. To give an example, in Bangladesh, after the Rana Plaza factory collapsed in 2013 that killed over 1,100 workers, the government and international organizations worked to improve building safety and enforce labor laws. Initiatives such as the Ethical Trading Initiative and the Fair Best Foundation work with brands to promote fair labor
On that
practices.
point,
Yes, later, and provide support to improve conditions in factories. I hope that answered your PY.
okay. So in that context, uh, so even if the law was enforced, it still stands that fast fashion is made on mostly sweatshirt shops.
But I also said before, we're trying to improve labor conditions, not stop them. Moving on, let's look at consumers' centricity. Today in this world, we have people from all economic status. Fast fashion makes trendy clothing accessible to a broad audience at low cost and give a lot of choice to consumers. A ban could exclude lower income consumers from accessing affordable apparel, which could be seen as regressive. Let's all be real here. Fashion industries are not going anywhere. In fact, it will only increase. The global fast fashion market was valued around 35.8 billion in 2020 and is expected to grow significantly. And not just this, there are allied industries such as packaging, logistics, etc., which thrive on fast fashion industry and give livelihood to others and increase economic development. A ban on fast fashion could not only lead to a downward economy, but it also has economic consequences such as black markets or increased prices. Additionally, it could shift production to less regulated markets, potentially worsening global environments and labor conditions. In conclusion, the fast fashion model promotes rapid production and innovation, meeting consumer demands quickly. While improvements are necessary in labor conditions and regulations, fast fashion plays a crucial role in providing accessible fashion choices and stimulating economic growth in developing countries. To end, let me share a quote. Banning fast fashion might sound like a quick fix, easy, but the real solution lies in regulation, education, and gradual transformation towards sustainable production and consumer habits. And there I rest my case.
Ladies and gentlemen, after publishing my task to summarize and clarify the key points of contention in this debate, the wider proposition has convincingly argued for our side to triumph. The pivotal questions at the bottom line of this debate are: how does the fast fashion industry take part harming environmental degradation? And second question is: in what ways does fashion exploit labor, and how could banning it say improve working conditions and social inequality? So, explaining the first theme, how does the fast fashion industry take part in harming environmental degradation? What can be some ecological advantages of banning the sale of them? This topic involves questions about environmental issues associated with fast fashion, specifically resource depletion, pollution, and waste generation. It beckons debaters to consider the more general ways that fast fashion is damaging to the environment and articulate the possible ecological gains that may be able to accrue due to the prohibition of its sale. This includes pollution reduction, resource conservation, and reduction in landfill waste, all of which add up to an argument for a more substantiate future. And my second theme to explain is: in what ways does fast fashion exploit labor, and how could banning its sale improve working conditions and social equality? This question addressed the social and ethical issue of fast fashion, where exploitative labor practices, substandard working conditions, and inadequate wages accessed. This forces debaters to look at the human cost of cheap, fast-made clothing and argue for the perspective of making room for better labor standards, wages, and social equity that would increase the view of human rights and fair labor practices in the apparel industry worldwide. Now let me move on to my class. The first speaker mentioned about the black market, but we believe, although banning fast fashion might seem noble for the sake of the environment, this will drive it underground into the black market. Instead of not now, but Instead of solving some of the problems we wish to solve, this shift will increase them. In black market, there are no regulations or oversight, which would enhance environmental damage and labor explosion even further. It could also be the case that if fast fashion were to be banned, there will be economic disparities in that those able to afford high and sustainable fashion would not be affected. Yet low-income individuals always find a way to access cheaper and controlled alternatives. Instead of this all-out ban on fast fashion, it is putting in the regulatory measures, education, and incentives on sustainability in the industry that will see change lasting. The first speaker talked about affordability and accessibility too. However, we claim that fast fashion is cheap, but with low quality and a short lifespan, leading to frequent purchases. Sustainable fashion may have higher upfront costs, but it is an investment as clothes last longer. There are also lower cost alternatives, such as second-hand markets and clothing swaps. Throughout the course of this debate, we have discussed enough in this regard to show the fact that selling that fashion should be forbidden for the greater good of the environment, workers, and society in general. We showed you how fast fashion is laying waste to our environment by pumping pollution and waste into on an unheard of scale. We pointed to the exploitation of vulnerable workers whose rights are thrown out to allow for cheap clothing. And we emphasize how this model promotes a disposable culture of access that would just be unsustainable. Further, we showed how much alternative there is. Sustainable fashion is not only an answer, but the only option that we have. It gives us a journey through which we can make our clothes while giving respect to the people on the planet. In conclusion, not without reason, but with reason, and per ban on fast fashion in the cold. It gives us a way forward to a future that exists with hope. Let us not shy from this responsibility, but grab it by the collar, Judge. Thank you.
You do not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. It's the first principle of life. Good morning, judges. This is Lavanya Chopra, the opposition whip. My first and second speaker have already stated our burden and our arguments. Let me re-establish the same. Here are my arguments. Workers are being abused not just for fast fashion, but across different industries. Louis Vuitton, Ralph Lauren, Hugo Boss, etc. all manufacture their clothing in countries like Bangladesh, which are famously known for misusing and underpaying workers. Similarly, the shoe industry, apparel industry, furniture, etc. industry all operate in countries where labor is underpaid and misused. Will banning fast fashion solve the problem? No, it will not. We need to solve the root cause. Secondly, improve lives. Don't kill livelihood. All fast fashion is not manufactured in poor worker conditions. Vietnam, Philippines, India are all nations where labor reforms are constantly happening to protect workers. There is no chance there is change in policy for minimum wage and working conditions and working hours, etc. But banning fast fashion will kill millions of jobs, and these low-income houses have no alternative sources of jobs. No, thank you. In their regions, developing nations have limited job options, and fast fashion is very critical to many countries. There is far more harm than good of banning fashion abruptly. Fast fashion has created millions of jobs and $1 trillion of business. No, thank you. Please stop badgering me. Moving on to my rebuttals. Government is pushing hard for changes in labor laws, as there has been wide misuse of workers. We completely agree. However, we are saying fashion houses are not the culprits. It's a practice for decades in various countries. We need to change the policies. USA has introduced incentives for companies who adopt good labor standards. Another solution is developed nations buying these fashion goods do stringent audits of companies in developing countries to ensure compliance. A third solution is free trade agreements between countries provides for compliance needs for labor standards. USA, Japan, EU are all adopting these solutions to protect labor. Secondly, government claims fast fashion is profiting too much for too few people, and harming workers across the globe, paying them small wages, which is barely enough for daily survival. What government has ignored is the significant benefits of these fast fashion companies. They pay huge taxes, create jobs, build ancillary industries across the globe. What we need is standards of working, not to stop itself. Stop, please. India, for example, has double digits of unemployment. If you stop fast fashion, jobs will be finished overnight. People who currently get paid will get zero. Their families will die as there are no other job options. We need India policy to change, not fast fashion. As for clashes, government wants to protect workers and improve lives. Opposition wants to do exactly the same. Government wants to shut businesses that create jobs to protect jobs. Isn't that ironic? However, our approach of emerging countries being incentivized and pushed to change labor policies is more practical, sustainable, and solves the root cause of the problem. Government has not given any examples of how shutting fast fashion has been effective in the past to solve the problem. There are no data points shared on the solution. Side opposition has clearly shown that free trade agreements between USA and India or International Labour Organization partnership with Cambodia are all examples of successful implementation of labor change. Let's weigh in on what the two sides are saying. On their side, you have ineffective decisions that kill jobs to save workers. On our side, you save jobs and improve worker lives in the long term. On their side, you have no evidence of a successful solution. On our side, you have clear examples of success. On their side, you have hunger, unhappiness, and poverty. On our side, you have growth, inclusion, and prosperity for all. In conclusion, it is clear we have won this debate as we have offered a solution that is practical, can be standard across the globe, successfully implemented, and creates more jobs with higher wages and better lives for all stakeholders. And with that, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
Greetings, House at Large. Today we know the motion, and now I will be sharing my reply speech. Side proposition said that fast fashion are usually made through sweatshops with poor labor and environment conditions. Yes, that's true, but it's not a solution to kill industry. The real action is for the government to take significant steps to make labor conditions better. Banning fast fashion can be harmful to the livelihood of so many people. Fast fashion is a significant economic driver, providing employment to millions globally. Banning fast fashion could lead to massive job losses, destabilizing economies, and increase in poverty. Instead of a ban, implementing stricter regulations could address many of the ethical environmental issues associated with fast fashion. The work has already started, in which we can see action taken in Bangladesh, European Union, and across the world to enforce labor laws, implement trade agreements, etc. On the consumer side, today in the world we have people from all economic statuses. Fast fashion makes trendy clothing accessible to a broad audience at low cost and gives a lot of choices to consumers. The global fast fashion market is expected to grow significantly. Additionally, there are allied industries such as packaging, logistics, etc., where thrive on fast fashion industry increases economic development. I ask, are we ready for a domino impact by this ban on other industries too? In fact, it could be worse, as it would shift production to less regulated markets, encourage black market, potentially worsening global environments and labor conditions. In our zeal to protect the environment, we must not create an economic crisis. And to conclude, while the concerns surrounding the fast fashion industry are valid, ranging from environmental degradation to labor issues, the solution is not to impose but to ban, to seek meaningful reforms. And there I rest my case.
As we reach the end of this debate, it is important to crystallize why our side has definitely triumphed in this debate. So, to fully understand why our side has definitely won, it is important to recognize the bottom line of this debate. The bottom line of this debate was namely, at the heart of it all, the wording would be more like, should there be a blanket ban on sales from fast fashion? The contention, therefore, is on issues of ethics, social, and environmental effects, with which fast fashion comes in, indeed, to what extent the ban would be a solution to the effects. So, I'd like to get into the burden of proof of each side. So, the burden of proof of the government side was to talk about the environmental issues and the poor working conditions. We have effectively told you our main stances about these issues and have addressed them. Now, moving on, the burden of proof for the opposition was to overcome the challenges of environmental problems and labor conditions that fast fashion provides the workers with. However, they have not fully answered my burden in my prime minister's speech of the environmental issues. So therefore, they have not touched the full depth of what they should have explained. Now I'll move on to my world comparison. Our world is a world where environmental issues are addressed with immediate effect. However, their world is a world where they are ignorant to the growing environmental issues. And they seem to be worried about job losses. However, I believe that this is a justifiable price given the needs of mitigated environmental issues. And also, I like to state that there are various jobs that does not require full education of it, with higher wage levels than than these fast fashions as well. With these points, I am proud to propose.